Well, we really like to encourage gardeners to get the most out of their gardening space. And one way to do that is to plant a fall garden. Now, most gardeners, I think as a general rule, realize that you can plant in the fall things like cabbage, lettuce, maybe some broccoli, Brussels sprouts. But I'd like to show you some other things that are very easily planted in the fall, and one of those is bush beans. Now this is our raised bed that early in the season we had potatoes, and you can see a few of the little tubers that we missed, and we're having some sprouts come up. But what we tried here was two new varieties of bush beans. This half of the bed is a new variety called Jade, and this half is one called Tender Pick. And I'd like to show you how the production turned out on that. Now with bush beans, the best time to plant for a fall garden is between August 10th and August 20th. We put these in a little bit earlier, and we're taping this segment around the third week of October. But both of them are real quick in producing the crop. The Jade variety will produce around 53 days from planting, and the Tender Pick will produce about 54 days. Again, they're great beans, and even the second harvest, depending on the length of the season before we get our first freeze, still puts on heavy crops of beans. Now the differences between these and some of the other bush beans, with the Jade, they're long, about 7 inches as an average, pretty straight, and again they're stringless snap beans. But one of their selling points is this beautiful green color, which is probably washing out a little bit today with our intense sunlight. But once you take them in the refrigerator and store them, a lot of times beans will fade out and lose the color. And these particular ones will actually hold that intense color because of a gene that's been bred into the plant. So again, this is Jade, and we got them from Johnny's Selected Seed, and I think you'll see them carried quite a bit next year in various seed catalogs. Now the Tender Pick is not quite as long. It's about 5.5 inches, and it seems to always have a little bit more of a curve to it than the Jade. Again, it's early, it's a snap bean, it's stringless, but its characteristics, I guess, as far as a selling point would be that they're very meaty, very thick, and supposed to be very flavorful. Now, we've not tried as far as a taste test either one of them, but we're real pleased in the color and the amount of production. So it just goes to show that in the fall garden, there's a lot more than broccoli, Brussels sprouts, some of those things. You might want to try your hand at some of the other alternatives like bush beans as well. Another not so common crop that we're trying this fall is tomatoes. Now, the reason that this variety is a little bit different, it's actually being promoted by the Texas Agriculture Extension Service as a fall producing tomato. And the cultivar is called Surefire. And really the differences in this particular tomato from some of the others is that it's really more tolerant to the heat setting conditions, because we are recommending that they're being planted somewhere around 65, maybe up to 90 days before the frost date, so you can get some production. Now, Texas is recommending that they plant in some of their areas around the 1st of July. We planted ours a little bit too late because of the accessibility of getting the plants in our area. Our planting date was about August the 19th. We are starting to get some fruit to ripen here at the bottom, and the size of the fruit is really considered medium-sized fruit. It's very firm and uniform in ripening, and the plants are also very adaptable to the cool conditions this time of year too. The fruits are supposed to be resistant to cracking. The plants are tolerant to verticillium and fusarium. And really another neat thing about the plant is it's determinate. So they're not going to get very tall, but you still need to cage them, which we've done here. And we've not done any pruning. That way we can shade out some of the fruit. Now I think if we would have done some pruning, we've been able to get fruit a little bit earlier too. But again, because of the time that we're planting them, those conditions are very stressful in heat. And remember again too that tomatoes, as a general rule, when we get temperatures in the evening of above 80, 85, 90 degrees, won't pollinate. And these are very acclimated to pollinating under those conditions. So again, that's why they're very acclimated for the fall. Now, one of the things that you have to really be careful with, anytime you put plants in the middle of the summer, gosh, the pest populations are very high. So there's going to be a lot of problems with spider mites, disease, other insects. One thing that you can do, and I'll show you over here on our another plant, is the minute that they're planted as a transplant, go ahead and try to cover them, put the cage in to stake them, and then cover them with a floating row cover. That will help keep the insect pest out. These tomatoes also are about 85% self-pollinating, so you would never have to remove it. You would just want to go in and check to see when the fruit are coming along and when they're ripe. The other thing is that you're going to get some heat relief from the absorption of the remed because it's not a plastic. It actually will allow some air movement through the plants. But the thing that you want to remember, because we planted ours so late and we've already had a couple of cold spells affect us, it really won't give you too much protection with freeze like plastic would. Now, we recommend the floating row cover when you can use it on plants that are close to the ground because it will help absorb the heat and keep the temperatures a little bit warmer close to the ground. But when you get it this tall, too much of the heat escapes. So I don't think it would give you a lot of protection in a hard freeze, so you'd want to cover them with plastic. But if you're interested in trying some of the tomatoes next fall, you might look for this variety, or if you can't find it, if you have plants that are pretty much overcoming any disease or insect, you can go in and prune those back, start fertilizing them pretty heavily, watering, and force new growth, and they will even reset for you in the fall, depending upon some of the practices and cultivars. Now I'd like to show you some of the more traditional fall crops and show you how they're coming along. One of the successes to a fall garden is successive or succession planting. And we planted this first half here with various types of carrots and lettuce around the 3rd week of August, and we waited a couple of weeks and planted another planting of the same cultivars a little bit later on. That way everything doesn't come off at the same time. Plus, depending upon the earliness of the frost, it gives you a little bit of variability in some of the plant production. Now, on the carrots, just kind of show you how some of them are coming along. This is Sweetness. This is a new one that's supposed to be a little bit sweeter. Still has a little ways to go because it would be what we would think of as a traditional carrot compared to some of the other ones. And this one is Carota. See, it's a little bit early yet too. Now, carrots will actually take some very cold weather, some freezes. You can even harvest them even in snow if the ground's not frozen. And then, of course, one of my favorite ones that was released this year is Thumbelina, which is more of a rounder carrot. And this time of year, though, the taste may vary a little bit too. But we still have a little bit of time in the producing or the finished product of the carrots, but it's always a good idea to check them to see how they're coming along. Well, that's all the time we have on today's show. We hope you'll be sure and join us again next weekend here on Oklahoma Gardening.